It started without warning, no trauma or sickness, no bargain struck in a desperate moment. One night, I simply closed my eyes in bed and woke somewhere that wasn't my room. Since then, it has happened every single night. I don't dream anymore. Sleep isn't a slow drift into warmth or a dark embrace. It's a violent extraction. The moment my head sinks into the pillow, I feel it. Something inside me tears free, like my bones are being wrenched from my flesh, but without the mercy of unconsciousness. My chest convulses as though someone is reaching in and scooping out everything that makes me, me. There's a sound that comes with it too, but it's not a sound you hear with your ears. It's a tearing scream that comes from inside your skull. My whole body is left behind in bed, still and useless, while whatever is left of my mind gets pulled into the dark. That's where I see him. Death. At least that's who I assume he is. No other explanation would make sense. He is shaped like a man, but he's too tall. His head always bends forward slightly, as if the ceiling of the world itself is pressing down on him. His body isn't shadow. It's the absence of anything alive or warm. Looking at him feels like looking into the moment before the universe was born. His form ripples and shifts with things I can't describe without sounding insane. There are swirls of smoke that move like galaxies, sparks like newborn stars flashing into existence before dying in cold silence. The edges of him blur and sharpen in a rhythm I can't follow, like he is both here and somewhere infinitely far away. He doesn't speak, he just walks, and I have no choice but to follow. The place he leads me to is never the same. Sometimes it's a ruined city where the wind carries voices I almost recognize. Sometimes it's an endless plain of bone-white dust beneath a black sky. Sometimes it's somewhere worse, somewhere that feels like it's looking back at me. I remember every single one of them, writing them all down, but the following entries I've written down are the ones that mattered most. I'll number them by which night it was in order, how many times I've walked in purgatory with death. 1. The first time it happened, I didn't understand where I was. I thought I was in a dream if not for the crystal clearness of everything I was experiencing. I woke standing on something that looked like glass. Not smooth glass, but thick panes that had cracked in jagged webs. Through the gaps beneath my feet, I could see what looked like an ocean turned upside down, suspended above nothing. It churned without sound. Waves rolled over one another and then folded inward into spirals that sank into black holes. Every so often, something moved beneath the water. I only caught glimpses, but they were large enough to darken entire stretches of the sea at once. Death stood beside me. He was watching the horizon, though there was no sun, no moon, and no sky. Just a band of pale light in the distance, like dawn frozen in place. "Where are we?" I asked. He didn't answer. The glass stretched endlessly in all directions, broken by holes where entire sections had fallen away into the void. Far off, I saw the twisted remains of buildings balanced at impossible angles. Some leaned so far they seemed on the verge of falling into the abyss, yet they never moved. We started walking. My footsteps made no sound, but the glass trembled faintly under my weight. Death never looked at me. "What is this place?" I asked again. "What's happening to me?" This time he slowly raised his arm and pointed toward the horizon. I didn't see anything there but that pale strip of light, yet the moment he pointed, a cold pressure began to build in my skull. After a long stretch of walking, I noticed shapes moving at the edges of the broken glass paths. At first I thought they were people, but they were too thin. Their bodies swayed like they were made of cloth filled with water. They had faces, but not the way humans do. Their eyes were just pits, their mouths narrow slits that didn't open. None of them made a sound. One came close enough for me to see its skin. It was translucent, like the thin membrane of an egg. Something writhed beneath it, pressing out against the surface as if it was trying to escape. "What are those?" I whispered. He didn't respond. He didn't even look. He just kept walking, and I had no choice but to follow. We reached the edge of the glass path where it broke into shards. Below was nothing but the upside-down ocean, stretching into forever. Death stopped there. He didn't point this time, he just stood, looking down, and I felt something in my chest begin to pull. The pressure grew until I couldn't breathe, and then, just like that, I was back in my bed. It was morning. My body was drenched in sweat, but the taste in my mouth was the strangest part. Salt water. 3. I woke standing on a road the color of burnt bone. The dirt was fine and dry, yet it seemed to cling to itself in a way that reminded me of ash mixed with oil. When I shifted my feet, it did not scatter like normal soil. Instead, it crumbled apart in sticky, slow-moving clumps, almost reluctant to be disturbed. The air was heavy, not just thick, but oppressive, as if something unseen was pressing down on my lungs and ribs. Each breath felt like drawing in lukewarm water that left a faint metallic taste on my tongue. It was quiet here, so quiet that I could hear the faint grind of my teeth when I clenched my jaw. The road stretched ahead and behind in a perfectly straight line, dividing an endless expanse of black grass. The blades were long and thin, swaying even though the air around them was completely still. They shimmered faintly, as if absorbing the faintest glimmers of light from somewhere I could not see. When I looked closely, I thought I saw tiny motes drifting upward from their tips, vanishing before they reached my knees. Above was a sky that made my head ache. At first glance it was dark, but not the kind of darkness you get from night. It was deep, layered, constantly folding in on itself. Shapes formed in that shifting void, swirling spirals, jagged arcs, patterns like constellations that almost made sense before collapsing into something alien. The folds of the sky moved in slow, deliberate motions, like the world above me was a living thing breathing in long intervals. Sometimes the stars that flickered between those folds appeared to be arranged in human shapes, sometimes in geometric patterns, and sometimes in things I did not have words for. The longer I stared, the more I felt my thoughts slipping sideways. Death walked ahead of me, his form swallowing every bit of light from the road. The absence that made up his body seemed to drink in the sky's shifting light, making the galaxies inside him burn brighter for brief moments before winking out. He did not look back, but I could feel the pull of his presence guiding me forward. We had been walking for what felt like hours when I saw them. Off to the right, far from the road, stood a lone tree. Its branches were bone-white and bare, each one curling upward in a way that made it look like a frozen scream. Beneath it huddled a group of figures. They were moving, but not toward us. Even from a distance, I could tell something was wrong. Their bodies were red and wet, strips of flesh hanging loose like clothing torn to shreds. Their faces were exposed muscle and sinew, and they clawed at themselves with hands slick with blood. Each motion tore more of their own tissue away. They made no screams, only low, constant moans that seemed to sink into the air like smoke into cloth. I stopped in the road and stared. "What are they?" I asked. Death did not respond. One of the figures lurched, its head twisting unnaturally far in my direction. There were no eyes, just dark, hollow sockets that glistened faintly. The mouth opened and shut, but the moaning did not match the movement. It was as if the sound was leaking from the air itself. Something pulled at me, not physically, but in a way that made my chest feel tight, as though the tree itself was drawing me toward it. Without realizing it, I stepped off the dirt road, my foot sinking slightly into the black grass. The second my shoe touched the blades, an arm like a wall of darkness moved in front of me. I froze. "Why?" I asked. Death turned his head toward me, his gaze sinking into my mind like a cold current. His voice, when it came, was low and hollow, vibrating through my bones rather than my ears. "They are not for you." I looked back toward the tree. The flayed figures had stopped clawing themselves and now stood still, all of them facing me. Even without eyes, I could feel them watching. The black grass seemed to twitch beneath my feet. I wanted to ask more, but the pressure began building in my chest again, sudden, sharp, and inescapable. The tree, the grass, the figures blurred into one smudge of black and red as my vision tunneled. Then I was in my bed. My sheets were damp with sweat. When I swallowed, my throat burned as if I had been screaming for hours. I think I had been. 7. This time I woke standing in water. It was shallow, only a few inches deep, but it stretched forever in every direction. The surface was perfectly smooth, and every step I took sent ripples racing outward until they faded into the horizon. There was no wind, no sound of waves, just the constant, delicate slap of water against my ankles as I moved. The ground beneath was solid, but I could not see it through the endless mirrored expanse. Above me was an ocean, not clouds, not a sky, but an actual ocean suspended overhead. The water churned and twisted far above my head, lit by shifting streaks of sunlight that seemed to come from nowhere. I could see shapes moving in that vast ceiling of water. Some were long, gliding in serpentine motions, their bodies too large to measure. Others drifted lazily, their bodies bulbous and fringed with translucent tendrils that pulsed faintly like they were breathing. Now and then, something enormous would pass overhead and block out all the light for a moment, and I would see only a silhouette so strange I could not begin to put words to it. Death was beside me, walking through the shallow water without leaving any ripples at all. "Why is this happening to me?" I asked him. He didn't answer. His head tilted slightly toward the distance, but he kept moving. I tried again. "If you're not going to tell me, then I guess I'll just talk to myself." And I did. I talked about how many nights it had been, how my waking hours were starting to feel more like the dream, how I'd stopped telling anyone about my nights because no one could understand. I talked about the places he'd taken me, the things I'd seen, and the growing suspicion that there was a reason for all of it. My voice felt too loud in the stillness, and yet death didn't seem to mind. We walked like that for what felt like hours. The water was cold, but it never got any deeper. The horizon never changed. The creatures above us swam on, unaware or uncaring that we were beneath them. Then I saw something on the horizon. At first it looked like a dark smudge moving slowly toward us. As it grew closer, I realized it was a ship. A massive, weather-beaten galleon, the kind I'd only seen in history books, floating upside down in the ocean above us. No, not upside down. The sky water didn't have an up or down. It just was. The ship was from another time, its wood blackened and rotting, its sails torn into long, fluttering ribbons. Large sections of its hull were missing, exposing broken ribs of timber. It should have been sinking, but instead it glided forward like it was caught on an unseen current. I thought at first it was dragging a normal anchor. It wasn't. Beneath it, tethered to a massive chain of rusted iron links, was a cluster of human bodies. Dozens of them, maybe more. They were alive, their chests rising and falling in slow, labored breaths. Each one was bound to the chain by their necks, their wrists, their ankles, so tightly that the iron had cut deep into their flesh. Their skin was pale and waterlogged, their eyes open but empty, gazing at nothing as they were pulled along. The chain dragged them across the shallow water, scraping their bodies over whatever lay beneath. I could see some of them twitch when they hit something sharp, but none of them screamed. The ship passed directly overhead, the chain rattling faintly as it went on. It did not speed up. It did not slow down. We stood there and watched it move past us, the trail of bodies stretching behind like a grotesque comet tail. I don't know how long we watched it. It might still be moving somewhere out there, dragging those bodies until there's nothing left of them to drag. Death turned and kept walking, and I followed. I didn't talk anymore after that. 13. Something is wrong with me. It's been creeping in over the last week. But today was the worst. I've been tired before, long shifts, bad sleep, but this is different. My body feels hollow, like I've been hollowed out with a dull spoon. My legs shake when I stand too long. My hands cramp when I try to write. I barely made it halfway through work today before my boss stopped me in the hallway. She didn't even ask if I was okay. She just said I looked pale and sick and that I should go home before I dropped dead in the lobby. I've had 3 nosebleeds in the past 2 days. I almost never get them, maybe once every few years. The last one came out of nowhere while I was making coffee, and the taste of iron wouldn't leave my mouth for hours. I'm starting to wonder if these nights with death are bleeding into the days. If some part of me is actually dying, piece by piece. When I fell asleep tonight, the pull came faster than usual. The place I woke in was open, not like a field, not like a plain, but an expanse so vast that I couldn't even tell where the ground ended and the horizon began. The surface beneath my feet was a black stone, fractured in spiderweb patterns, each crack faintly glowing with dim blue light. Above us, the sky was filled with slow-moving clouds that glowed from within, like storm fronts lit by distant lightning. Death stood a few steps ahead, already walking. I caught up to him quickly. "Is there a reason you keep showing me all of this?" I asked. He didn't look at me, but he nodded once. That answer was worse than silence. It confirmed something I'd been afraid to admit to myself. There is a purpose. "What is it then?" I pressed. "Why me? Why these places? What am I supposed to do with any of this?" His head turned slightly, and when he spoke, his voice was the low rumble of distant thunder.
"It is not yet time for you to know."
The heat in my chest was sudden. I was tired of waking in strange worlds, tired of walking without answers, tired of feeling weaker each day. "Of course it's not time," I muttered, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. "It's never time, is it?" He didn't reply. I stopped asking questions. We walked on in silence for the rest of the night. The cracks in the stone seemed to pulse faintly with each step we took, like the ground itself had a heartbeat. Somewhere far off, I could hear what sounded like water dripping into an endless pit. When the pressure in my chest returned, I let it take me without fighting it. Back in my bed, my nose was bleeding again. 19. My body is failing me faster than I can keep track of. I am exhausted all the time. My legs feel like they might buckle under the smallest weight. My hands cramp just lifting a pen. My vision flickers, and sometimes I see things that I know aren't there, yet they feel solid. I could have sworn the mailman was missing his eyes today, standing at my doorstep with nothing behind his lids. The worlds I walk through at night are seeping into my days. Shadows move across the walls where there should be none. Faces appear in reflections, and I catch them only for a moment before they vanish. My nosebleeds have become relentless, coming every couple of hours, each one leaving the taste of iron thick in my mouth. I went to bed tonight determined to confront death. I refused to move until he answered some questions. We arrived in the blackened plains without sound, but this time he did not walk. For the first time, he stopped, standing motionless and waiting. I could feel the pull of the landscape, but I did not move. "Why are you showing me all of this?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. His head tilted toward me. When he spoke, the words were slow, deliberate, and impossibly calm.
"To prepare you."
I frowned, pressing further. "For what?" He said nothing. He only stood there, impossibly still, his form swallowing light around him. The answer was implied, clear, and yet I dared not say it aloud. I swallowed hard and tried another question. Why is my body getting worse in the real world? Why am I falling apart? He remained silent. Not a nod, not a gesture, only the weight of his presence. The answer again was implied, as if my own failing body and these walks were connected in ways I could not fully comprehend. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension drain out of me. My chest ached, my muscles trembled, and my head throbbed, but I understood enough. I walked with him. We moved through the dark plains together. The windless air pressed against me. The ground beneath our feet was cracked and uneven, pulsing faintly with an inner glow. I spoke occasionally, but only to fill the silence, knowing he would not answer. And yet, even without his words, I felt it. The reason, the purpose, the inevitability. Each step with him is shaping me, marking me, preparing me for something I cannot name. I do not want to know yet, but part of me knows I already do. When I awoke, my body felt worse than ever. My nose had bled again, my muscles ached, my vision wavered, and still, I cannot stop. 25? I don't know what day it is anymore. The hours of sunlight blur into one another, and the nights follow the same pattern, slipping past me in shapes I can barely name. At first, I could remember every night clearly because each one was unique, strange, terrifying in its own way. But now, I have seen all manner of things, horrifying, beautiful, impossible, and the memories overlap like wet paint running together. I am not even sure if this is the 25th night, or if I have been walking longer than that. My body continues to fail me. Each day is heavier, each step slower. My vision flickers constantly, and the hallucinations that haunt me when I am awake have grown sharper, more frequent, more detailed. They are not random anymore. I recognize them for what they are, the fates I have witnessed on the walks. I see glimpses of them everywhere, faces twisted by pain, bodies suspended in impossible ways, signs of punishments that do not belong to this world. Flayed skin hanging from skeletal frames, limbs bent backward until they snap but never stop. People drowning in shallow pools of water that never stop rising, gasping endlessly as the water fills their mouths, noses, eyes. Bound to red-hot iron cages that sear without ever cooling, screaming silently for eternity. Hung by man-sized fishhooks through the neck, and dangling with others like wind chimes, swaying with an invisible breeze. Bodies sewn together into grotesque patchwork, forming moving walls of flesh. Limbs twisted into knots that defy anatomy. Faces pressed flat against stone as if to memorize their own torment. I have begun to feel something I never expected. I can almost see it. Not in full, not with certainty, but I can glimpse the shape of someone's fate before they reach purgatory. The curve of a spine, the tension in their hands, the way they breathe, it all hints at what awaits. I see it in brief flashes, in moments when the world is quiet and the shadows press closer. It terrifies me more than the walks themselves because it is mine too, and there is no one to guide me through it. I don't know how much longer I can last like this. My body weakens every day. My nose bleeds without warning. My muscles cramp at the smallest effort, and my mind is fraying at the edges. Yet I still walk. I still follow him, even though I know that the horrors I see are only the beginning, and the ones that await are worse than I can name. Every night brings more. Every night I see more of what lies beyond. I am learning the patterns, the inevitabilities, and with each step, I understand that purgatory is not only a place, it is a truth, and one day it will catch me fully. I can barely remember how long I have been walking. Time stretches thin, bending around me like a fragile pane of glass, and the days and nights are one long, continuous motion of shadow and silence. My body is failing faster now. Every movement makes my head and chest ache. We walked for hours without a word. The ground beneath us was uneven, blackened stone that seemed to pulse faintly with a light of its own. The air pressed close, heavy with the smell of wet iron and ash. Finally, I could not hold back the question. "Am I going to die?" I asked. Death stopped, which is rare. He does not often pause, but now he did, turning his impossible form toward me. His voice, low and hollow, rolled through the stillness.
"Perhaps, someday."
I swallowed, my throat dry, and whispered, "I imagine it will be soon, with how fast my body is declining. He did not answer. I forced myself to ask another question, even though I could feel the weight of his presence pressing down harder with each word. Do I really see it? Can I see people's fates in the real world, like it feels like I can? For a long moment, he said nothing. The stillness stretched between us, the black stone and shadow pressing against my chest. Then finally, in a single word that cut through me like ice, he spoke.
Yes.
The word echoed in my mind, settling deep in a place I cannot reach. My stomach twisted, my hands clenched at my sides. It was not just a confirmation, it was a warning. I wanted to say more, to ask what it meant, but I could not. I swallowed and followed him, each step heavier than the last, the silence now full of an understanding I did not want, yet could not escape. The last night. I do not know how many nights it has been. I do not know if the days even exist anymore. Every moment of my life feels like part of the same endless walk, and the nights have begun to feel like the only reality I can trust. Tonight was different. For the first time, I had a full conversation with death. Not a nod, not a wordless gesture, not a cryptic answer. A conversation. I asked him again why this is happening, why I am being shown all these things, why my body is breaking down, why my mind is fraying with every passing day. He did not answer with words at first. Instead, he pointed ahead. I followed him across cracked black stone that pulsed faintly beneath our feet until we reached the edge of a pit. It was impossible. The darkness yawned below us like an ocean with no bottom. I could not see the end, and my mind struggled to comprehend the depth. Even the air around it seemed heavier, drawn downward as if the pit were pulling the world into itself.
This is what you have been walking towards.
Why? I asked, my voice shaking.
You will find out soon.
I stood at the edge of the pit, my chest tight, the blackness below endless. Why did you lead me here? I asked. Death turned to me, his impossible form shifting with the depth of darkness and stars within him. For a moment, I felt as if he was looking not at my face, but straight into my eyes, into the core of me.
It was your choice to follow,
he said, his voice low and certain.
I am simply the guide.
I swallowed hard, staring down into the void. My legs trembled. The weight of inevitability pressed on me. There was no arguing, no bargaining, only the truth of what I had chosen, knowingly or not, and the path that lay before me. I looked into the unending void, my stomach twisting. What happens if I fall? He tilted his head, a movement that seemed impossibly slow and deliberate. His body radiated nothing but emptiness and stars, a universe contained in black.
You will not fall, because you will step in.
I swallowed hard. My hands were trembling, my chest ached. The pull of the pit was stronger than anything I have felt, a pressure that threatened to drag me into itself even before I moved. And yet, I knew he spoke the truth. I would not fall. I would step. I do not know what waits at the bottom. I do not know if I will survive what comes next, or if I will be changed beyond recognition. But I know I will step, and then, perhaps, I will finally understand. Even as I write this, I can feel it. My fingers are growing cold with the touch of death, the weight of him pressing into me through the screen, the keyboard, through the air around me. I write not because I think it will save me, not because I can fight what is coming, but because I need someone, anyone to know that this exists, that it waits, that I have seen it. All day I have seen him, not in dreams, not in walks through impossible lands, but here in the waking world, just out of reach, always near, waiting. I cannot close my eyes without seeing the shadow of him sliding across the corners of rooms, leaning over strangers, brushing past passers-by in silence. It is not that they cannot see him, it is that he does not allow them to see. Only me. I have been seeing the fates of others for weeks now. I can glimpse them in the twitch of a hand, the curve of a spine, the way someone breathes, and it chills me to know what waits for them. But when I look at myself, there is nothing I can measure, no form I can define, only infinite dark, beautiful, impossible dark, filled with swirling infinities of new and dying stars, galaxies of smoke and shadow birthing and dying within themselves, a universe contained in a single absence of light, and it is me. I know tonight I will step into the pit. I know it as surely as I know that the air presses heavier on my chest, that my legs shake beneath me, that my body is failing. This is not a choice. It is inevitability. I do not know what awaits at the bottom, but I know it will be the answer. I know that what comes next will be the culmination of every walk, every sight, every whisper of death in the dark. And still, I am not afraid. Not fully. There is a strange comfort in knowing the shape of what is to come, in knowing that I will finally see it. Tonight I will step, and perhaps after that, there will be silence.